For today, we are having a day 2 of writing linear equations. Our objective is I will be able to express the relationship between two quantities as a linear equation. Looking at our fill in the blank, it says the value of the blank variable depends on the value of the blank variable. So we're listing out for two words to fill in. Looking at our first practice problem, it is actually a review problem that we had on yesterday's lesson. It says Isaac has H baseball cards and Carlos has 7 more baseball cards than Isaac. If Carlos has K baseball cards, express K in terms of H. And we're also trying to state the independent and dependent variable. So Isaac has H baseball cards is one important key detail. The next one is Carlos has 7 more baseball cards than Isaac. And lastly, we have if Carlos has K baseball cards, express K in terms of H. So looking at this information, we want to know that express K goes first. So K in terms of means equals H. So H, we have H, and Carlos has 7 more than Isaac because Isaac had H baseball cards. And however many baseball cards Isaac had, Carlos had 7 more. So we have to add 7 more. That part we knew from yesterday's lesson. However, we now want to state the independent and dependent variable. So our independent variable is actually going to be H. This is our independent variable. And this one, K, is going to be our dependent variable. Because whatever the value H is, whatever number we put in for H, the dependent variable depends on that value. So our linear equation would be this, and our independent variable would be H, and our dependent variable would be K. So you want to remember that the dependent variable depends upon the value of the independent variable. Looking at number 2, it says Molly scored R points at the softball game, and Jill scored 3 points less than Molly. If Jill scored X points, express X in terms of P and state the independent and dependent variable. So we're going to highlight all of our key details. The first one is Molly scored R points at the softball game. The next one is Jill scored 3 points less than Molly. So Molly scored R points and then Jill scored 3 less than that. And lastly, Jill scored X points. And it told us to express X in terms, remember we said it was going to be equals P. So it will be X equals, well, P, we know, this is supposed to be R, I apologize. This is supposed to be R. X in terms of R. So Molly scored R points at the softball game, and then Jill scored 3 less. So R minus, because 3 less points. And this would be our linear equation. And now we have to figure out what the independent variable is and the dependent variable is. Well, our independent variable is going to be R, and the dependent variable is going to be X, because R, the dependent variable, which is X, relies on R's value. Because let's say that Molly scored, instead of R points, we know that Molly scored 3 points, or we'll say Molly scored So if we originally had x equals r minus 3, let's say that x equals, we'll say Molly scored 5 points now. So 5 minus 3. Well, we know that x equals 2, and whatever our independent variable it had depended on our dependent variable. So our dependent variable depends upon our independent variable. All right, looking at number 3, we have Lim baked Y cookies. He wanted to share it amongst his 3 friends. If each friend received P cookies, express P in terms of Y. State the independent variable and the dependent variable. So we're first going to highlight all of our key details. The first one is Lim baked Y cookies. Our next one is he wanted to share it amongst 3 friends. And the last one is each friend received P cookies. And it told us to express P in terms of Y. So we know P is going to come first, which is how many each friend received. And we know that Lim baked Y cookies and he shared it amongst his 3 friends. So however many cookies Lim baked, which was Y, we need to divide it by 3 to tell us how much each friend would receive. So this right here would be our linear equation. And then our independent variable. And then our dependent variable. Remember, our dependent variable depends upon the value of our independent variable. So our independent variable is going to be Y, because if we knew that Lim baked 30 cookies, we now know that 30 divided by 3 would be 10. So each friend would have received 10 cookies. So P is our dependent variable, because our dependent variable depends on our value of our independent variable. Looking at number 1 for our U try, it says a square has sides of length U centimeters. If the perimeter of the square is P centimeters, express P in terms of R. So I'm just going to draw a shape so that we have it. And then I'm going to pause, go ahead and stop the video and go ahead and try this on your own. So you have a square. Go ahead and stop the video, try this on your own. We'll come back and see if we have the same answer. So we're going to highlight all of our key details. So the first one is a square has lengths with U centimeters. So each side has U centimeters. So this one is U, this one is U, this one is U, and this one is U. So there's 4 U's. U plus U plus U plus U. You should have simplified, which have gotten 4 times U. Our next key detail was if the perimeter of the square is P centimeters, so the entire outside equals P centimeters, it wants us to express P in terms of R. So P in terms of R, and this should have been U, not R. So you should have gotten 4 times U as your answer, and this would have been your linear equation. And then we have to figure out what our independent variable and our dependent variable is. Well, our independent variable is going to be U, because whatever each side length is times 4, it would give us the entire outside of our perimeter, which is P. So P would be our dependent variable, because whatever U is, it depends on the independent variable. So the dependent variable depends on the independent variable. Lastly, looking at the last you try, it says Jose jogged T blocks. Zane jogged 9 more blocks than Zane. If Zane jogged F blocks, express F in terms of T and state the independent and dependent variable. This is supposed to say Jose. So looking at this information, we're going to highlight all of our key details. The first one is going to be Jose jogged T blocks, and Zane jogged 9 more blocks than Jose. So however many blocks Jose jogged, Zane jogged 9 more. And the last one is if Zane jogged F blocks, express F in terms of T. Well, it gave us F in terms of T, so we know it's going to be F equals, well, for T, Jose jogged T blocks and Zane jogged 9 more. So we have to add 9. And this would be our independent variable, our linear equation. And then we got to figure out what our independent variable is and our dependent variable is. Well, remember, our dependent variable depends on the value of the independent variable. So if Jose jogged 9 blocks, well, now we have 9 plus 9, which would give us how many blocks Zane jogged, which is F, which would give us 18. So the independent variable would be T, and the dependent variable is F. Looking at our fill in the blank, it says the value of the blank variable depends on the value of the blank variable. Go ahead and think about that for a second, and then we will figure out what our blanks are. So if you got the value of the dependent variable depends on the value of the independent variable, you are correct.